Hello, welcome along to this, the third year of Be Inspired. Today, hopefully you will be inspired by the panel here we have today. We're going to talk about the work-life balance, and the title of this is What's That? And I almost feel it should say work-life balance. What's that? Because basically, at times, there is no balance. For me, I think it feels like a blend. So that's the word that I tend to use, because I think a balance feels like you've got scales in your hand and you're trying, and one goes up and one goes down. Blend kind of says, actually, I'm going to say my life has to be a blend. It has to be work and it has to be personal, and they have to come together. They meet somewhere in the middle, or maybe not in the middle at times. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the panel. They're also going to tell you a little bit about themselves. If you don't know who I am, I'm Vicky Gomersall. I've worked for Sky Sports News longer than I care to remember. It is a wonderful job. It's changed immeasurably. The whole company's changed immeasurably over the last 20 years that I've been there. So I will talk a little bit about that, but without further ado, let's introduce the panel. So we have Stephanie Hilborne here, who is the OBE, and you are the CEO, I should say, of Women in Sport. So welcome along. Sian Massey-Ellis as well, who is an assistant referee for both the Premier League and the Football League as well. We have Tanya, Oxtoby, who is the Northern Ireland Senior Women's Manager. And on the end there we have Lenah Ueltzen-Gabell, I hope I said that right, who is the Group Managing Director of Wasserman. So welcome along. I'm going to start with you, Stephanie. If you can just give us the synopsis of yourself and how you got to where you are.
Yes, I think it's an interesting point about work-life balance. So I've always worked in something I care passionately about, which means it's part of your life, isn't it? But I basically did sport at school until the sixth form when I hurt my back, and then I said to a sort of swotty friend of mine, what do you do when you're not playing sport? She said, well, you could try revising. And so I said, can you just talk me through that? And my revision was lying in the garden with your book in front of you and gradually going to sleep, but she taught me you meant to learn it. But what I was really passionate about, although all I wanted to do was play sport, I wanted to save the world. I was an environmentalist. So I went into being an environmentalist effectively in the voluntary sector for 27 years, and it wasn't much fun. Especially the years where no one would believe us climate change was happening. That was not fun. There were a lot of the big fat cats of industry who would talk down to you just because you're an environmentalist, and if you're a female one, that added to it. But I used to visualise my netball coach on the sidelines going like that, so I'd kept going. And then towards the end of that bit of my career, I thought, what other cause is massive? And I've been one of the army of women who've sworn at the men's sports pages in the papers for 20, 30 years. Just call it the men's sport page. I've been one of them. And I've also got a girl and a boy who are 25 and 23, saw the difference they had in their sporting experience, and had started to see business and the experience of women in business. So it ended up going to work to Women in Sport nearly 5 years ago now, 4.5 years ago. Amazing charity, and really, really lucky to have landed there, to be coming into your world effectively and trying to help bring what I know from my previous existence to try and help make that change.
Sian.
I a very similar journey really. Started in sport, a PE teacher by trade. Always loved sport and the kind of leadership role within sport. Started refereeing when I was 14 as that kind of side. I was always the person who played, and then I wanted to referee on the side as well. I never thought, if somebody asked me 20 years ago, oh, would you want to be on the Premier League? That was never a question really. I just did it because I loved it, and just progressed through the ranks, and then ended up on the Premier League as a side job to my PE teaching.
Okay. Tanya?
Yeah, morning guys. I actually grew up in a really small country town in Australia. I know the accent's gone a little bit. But I played all sports when I was younger. Sort of specialised. I thought I was going to be a basketballer, but turns out I wasn't very good at it. So I ended up in football. Made my way across to your lovely country to play in the WSL, and progressed into coaching. My journey's been very, very mixed. I have a nearly 3-year-old little boy, worked at Bristol, Chelsea, and now obviously moved over into international management, which is a whole different beast in itself. My journey has been one that's sort of spread across different continents and obviously different spheres. So psychologist by trade, but ended up in football and stayed in football.
Brilliant. Lenah.
Well, I started out being very sporty. It seems to be a theme amongst the group. I played all sports. I was an only child, and I loved my dad, so I was just a total tomboy. Put me in anything, ball, stick, hoop, horse, whatever it may be. I sort of was just couldn't get enough of it. Ultimately, I turned into, sort of honed that into becoming a professional equestrian. I did that pretty much until I was forced to go to school, to go to university. And then at that point, my parents said, why don't you go get a real job, right? I love that, by the way, back in that time. Go get a real job. Can you go work for like Procter & Gamble? Can you go work for one of those brands? And I was like, okay, I'll try. So I went off to university, and I just wasn't finding my groove. I was like, I wasn't finding it. Did these interviews with Toyota and Procter & Gamble and all these brands. And what I really loved is sport. But I love sport for not only because I played it, but I love for what it does for people, right? It doesn't matter where your background is from, if you're male or female, but when you stand in a venue like this one, and you stand in one of the VOMs and you look up, everyone has lost themselves and it's a complete level playing field, and that gives me goosebumps. And I was like, I gotta get back to that, right? So, all these sort of degrees be damned, and I started as a marketing assistant because it was the only job I could get in the WNBA, and it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Being there, working in women's sports, but working with this sort of daddy version of the NBA behind you, but getting to know all parts of the sports industry, it really helped me and gave me this amazing foundation to sort of move forward through the ranks. And so, lo and behold, I threw myself in work. I worked at the NBA for many, many years. Then I came over to Wasserman, and I came over to the UK, so to multiple continents. Yeah. Very interesting perspectives looking at women's sports in sort of different lenses. I've been here for now 14 years, which is kind of nuts. My family travels with a lot of passports at this point. And it's been fascinating over those 14 years to watch the evolution, particularly in the gender equity in the sports space over here, and really the supercharge that happened in 2018, as we were just talking about. But it's funny, I sort of have a different lens on it now. I started my family a little bit later, so I now have 3 kids. I'm a working mom. I started in my 40s, which is crazy, including 2 twins that are 2-year-old, but they're all boys. So I have a new challenge in the gender equity space. I need to not raise assholes, right? Like I need to basically raise these 3 boys to understand what this means, right? What their experience is going to be, sort of male and female, and how they work in the sporting world, in their regular life, in their day job, in their personal life. And that's sort of my new challenge, but you know, I'm really proud of where we've come over the last few years, but we're not done yet, and we're on an amazing journey. But it's like, you know, now, how do we pay it forward with our next generation, but also all of you?
Couldn't agree more. And in terms of that, I'd really like for you to put some questions forward. We'll do that at the end of the session, so do try and have a think about what you might want to ask these guys. I'm going to start with you, Lenah, because the question is, can you have it all? You know, I've sat at home at times and thought, I actually can't do tomorrow. There's too much going on. Somebody's ill. This is happening, and all that's going on. And then you go into work and you put your face on and you know, present to an audience. That's kind of what I do on a daily basis at times. So can you have it all? Can you have the career and balance your personal life?
The really short answer is no.
Okay,
no.
Good.
But in all seriousness, though, I think you have to define what having it all is. I mean, I think there's a real importance to, we all need goals, right? And we all need to, what defines you? What makes you tick, right? And what becomes a priority? Because you can't be all things to all people at all times. No, you are not superhuman. It's okay, male or female, you're not superhuman. But for me, you know, you have to find, like, I want to be successful in my career. It may have some gives. I may not be at every performance, but that's my choice, right? So I think that's something that I always say, I kind of call it the mirror test, right? Like, as we go through our career, we have to constantly check ourselves. Are we doing more and enjoying it less? Because if we are, we need to stop and reset and figure out where we want to go. And I think that's the piece of it. Like, yeah, can we have it all, but at what cost, right? Yes, of course. You could have it all, do all this, you could have nannies, you could have this, you could have a full service life, but when you get home at night, are you really happy? So I think there is a real moment of, you can have it all the way you define it, and I don't want to take that dream away from anyone, and it doesn't mean that you can't be an amazing person, amazing mom, and amazing leader in the sports and entertainment industry, but you have to do it on your terms, and that's what I would say.
Okay.
I mean, do you guys agree?
Yeah, I think prioritising is massive, and you know, protecting and having really clear boundaries around those priorities is important, because not everybody will understand that your priorities are important. And I think being okay with the fact that not everybody is going to see it the way you do. You're going to have guilt, you know, no matter what it is that you choose to do. You know, and again, it's that mirror piece of what are you comfortable with, and being okay that actually maybe some people within your work environment may not be comfortable with your choices. But you're doing it for you, and you're doing it for the right reasons, and it's what makes you and your family happy at the end of the day. So, you know, be really clear with your boundaries and protect your priorities, because they are what make you happy and what make you who you are. That would be my kind of key take to add on to that.
Sian,
Sorry, can I do a quick
of course you can. Yes,
I mean,
please
it
do.
actually makes me quite cross.
Okay.
Because how many times have you said to a man, you can't have it all, love? You know, actually men haven't had it all in the past, and they've lost out on being close to their kids, a lot of men, because they've been out there while women have been raising the kids, and they haven't had it all. They've had the big job, but they've missed out on that relationship with their kids. And what we're trying to do is to recalibrate so women can have a life at work and a life outside the home, and men have more of a life in the home. And that's a massive recalibration, which is good for men as well as for women. And I think that can you have it all is such a gendered thing to ask, because, you know, actually men and women should both have happy, fulfilled lives, both at work and at home. And how do we achieve that in a way that works? I did a role reversal with my ex-husband, and it didn't work because we did a full role reversal. So he kind of lost who he was in terms of having, you know, a meaningful life outside the home. And actually for men, they struggle more sometimes with that, because there's less of a network and less of a support thing. And the women at the school gates didn't really want to, he's quite a handsome chap, didn't really want to sort of keep asking him around for tea in case we started to talk. And, you know, so actually, you know, he ended up isolated with the two other men in the massive community who were primary carers. And actually he didn't have, you know, it didn't work. We should have balanced it. And so I think there's a much bigger question as women. We have to stop feeling guilty, because actually that comes from stereotyping. We are taught from almost the moment we're born that our job is to look after the emotions of everyone else and to put our own needs last. What rubbish, you know? Everyone.
But I hear what you're
first.
saying. I think as a parent. No.
Sorry,
Absolutely.
that would be my question.
In terms of, I've done almost exactly what you've done. I sort of have a bit of a role reversal. My partner is a builder, and he pretty much does a lot for me in terms of me being able to drop things and just go and do my job. But that actually left me with guilt, not because of him or anything, but as a mum, at times I would leave on a Sunday to go and do my job, and they'd all be in the garden having a lovely barbecue, and I'd just think, oh, this is killing me. So it was the guilt, but he wasn't putting that on me, or it wasn't a gender thing. I think it was just a me thing.
No,
you know?
I mean, it comes from your child and not from him, just to be clear.
Yeah, I don't even know I don't know what it comes from. I don't know. It's just my kids, and they just bloody absorb
it's
me.
more
You know,
you want to be with them, isn't it?
Yes, it's that pull. Sian, your partner works in exactly the same role as you do. So how do you juggle that then?
Yeah, so we have he got a game last night for tonight, and I was like, no, who's going to pick up from gymnastics tonight? It's that balance of like juggling balls. We've got a 7:30 pick up, and he's not going to be here. And we talked about having that community around you. I think it's really important. I've got close family that live really close to me, but it's like today the appointments come out 10 o'clock today, and I'm like, right, okay, where am I this weekend? I'm at Burnley on Saturday, so do I need a hotel Friday night? Who's going to do the pick-up on Friday? What time am I going to be back? You know, it's that kind of, we bounce off each other. We have got that kind of role reversal in some respects, in terms of, you know, he will do the school run this morning, and I said, the last thing I said to him before I left the house was, don't forget she's in PE kit today. You know, we have that kind of, but he's quite good at and kind of setting everything out and getting ready. He's used to me being away. That helps a lot as well. To start with, I was like, sending him a calendar if she needs to eat at this time and this time, you know. But I think he's used to it. I mean, I was away for nearly 7 weeks in the summer, and I kind of say to her now, she's 8, so she understands a lot more. And I say, well, do you want to come to Australia with me for the World Cup, or do you want to have a holiday? And she was like, I'll have a holiday, Mum. I was like, okay. I'll watch you on the TV, thanks. So she understands it now, but also I kind of look at it from a little bit of a different perspective in terms of, I want her to understand that Mummy's going out to do a really important job, and she's got her career, and it's okay to have a career too. And I think she really sees that, and I definitely know she's proud of me for what I do. And I hope that she understands that Mummy's had to break down barriers to be allowed to be where she is today. And I hope that means for her, she can smash down every barrier that she comes across, whether that be in an environmental life or a sports life. And I think that sports definitely teaches children all about winning, losing, teamwork. I think it has so many benefits, and I think that, I hope that she sees that in the job that I do, and that kind of outweighs all the negatives of the challenges of juggling childcare and all of that.
What about you, Tanya? You said today you arrived and your little man was ill. So how do you do that? You know, that's the spanner in the works, isn't it? You think you've got it all mapped out for the week and then something goes wrong.
Yeah, you plan, and then they just go, no, we're not having that. Like, we're doing this now. Look, I think supportive network. My wife is here somewhere floating around in the, there. You know, so again, being able to say, like, you know, whose is more important in terms of their day and what they need to do, and who can have a little bit more flex. That's really important. But at the end of the day, he's my priority. So, you know, if he's ill and I can't come today, that takes precedence over everything for me, because again, it goes back to priorities, being okay with, you know, being comfortable with the fact that actually I want him to know that he is my priority, and yes, I do an important job and I love my job, and I've had to break down barriers, you know, in terms of my job, just having him. I'm really, really lucky that I've got a great support network in terms of the football world, you know, and I know Emma's coming a little bit later, but she was fantastic for me, having been through it, and you know, she kind of scooped me up and picked me up and put me in an environment where I was valued, and the, you know, my work-life balance was appreciated, and that's important. You know your priorities, make sure that you're okay with what they are, and align yourself in an environment that will respect that. That's probably the key piece for me, because I can't do what I do without that.
How difficult is it to sort of break those barriers, though, Lenah? Because perhaps yourself, you know, you've come up against something like that where you thought, just this isn't aligned with me, but actually this is perhaps where I want to work. I want to work in this industry, but they're not quite with me on this. What do you do in that situation?
I mean, I think we all know the world we work in, right? I think that we've all probably come through and experienced that. But I think, again, it's about what do you want to achieve, and look for your allies. I think that's something that women in sport are very good about, is that network, right? I mean, I did learn a very horrible term the other day, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard, but I've never heard it before. Ladder kickers? Have you heard this? Have you guys heard this?
What kickers?
Ladder kickers.
No, I've not heard
So
it.
supposedly that is
Yeah.
women who climb to the top and kick the ladder off.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard that before. But God, that's a horrible thing, right? Like, I think what I've always been so excited by is I've had a lot of very, very strong and amazing sort of trailblazers in the female sports space, both on the pitch and off the pitch, and those are the people that give me hope, right? Like, we will all run into those situations. We will all run into, you know, challenges where you definitely are, like, you know, the only woman in the room. I mean, we've all been mostly the only woman in the room, but I think it makes you stronger, right? And you kind of put that, you've got to quiet the noise, and you put your head down, you do good work, you find opportunity, you find your allies, you find what makes you happy, right? Like, and you go on with it, because there will always be those people. I mean, I think our goal with sustainable change is that we have to get more of us working together, doing good work, showing everyone. I know we shouldn't have to, but what's not sustainable is we start putting quotas in. And if we start, like, you know, putting people in situations that they're not ready for, in the right place at the right time, that's not sustainable change. It only feeds into stereotypes, and it feeds into sort of the negative intentions. That may be a very controversial view, and I'm okay with that. I'm a big believer in, we have to approach equality in our space and success for women in this sport, kind of like we look at it on the pitch, right? It's a journey. We have to band together, we have to expose people to opportunities, and we have to enable them to be successful and to do their craft in a very important way. And I think that on and off the pitch, I personally have a very similar approach to that.
Okay, Stephanie, women in sport have been going 40 years, which is quite remarkable this year. What changes have you kind of witnessed, do you feel? And is there, you know, how far are we on the road? Do you think we are on the road to sort of complete parity and being able to get this blend of work and personal life?
So, I mean, in terms of changes, yeah, we're celebrating our 40th birthday, which makes me feel young, actually, which is good. 1984, when we were formed, and we were formed in the image of Billie Jean King's Women's Sport Foundation in the States, which had been founded 10 years ago. It was the first year that women were allowed to run the Olympic marathon, having campaigned since 1896 to be able to. And even beyond then, you know, we were only allowed to do the pole vault in 2000. At the Olympics, and the argument's given is because our wombs might fall out on the way up, which largely I've not witnessed.
No, I haven't seen it happen yet.
So, you know, the Olympics is a sort of horrific story if you follow it, because the Frenchman involved was a complete misogynist, and unless he's been profoundly misquoted on very large number of occasions, appalling man. So he sort of set that culture, and we've only just now got to equality in the Olympics. So yes, we've made massive progress because we have got to equality in the Olympics, and people largely wouldn't say, watch out, your womb will fall out if you do anything where you land hard, because that was the argument against the ski jumping as well, by the way, which we only just been allowed to do in the last 10 years. So, so we have made progress, I think, in terms of the whole, that's within sport. And I think if you root sport within society and you go to the origin of the word sport, it means freedom from responsibility. And women haven't been allowed to do it. You could say that's because men were working hard, so they needed time out from work. But actually, it's pretty cruel to not let people do sport, because it's actually about joy. It's actually about fun, as well as all of these sort of very genuine life skills. It's just freedom, isn't it? It's freedom. And so if we say to a little girl, you're responsible for the happiness of the people around you, as you're stereotyping when they're little, that's the opposite of freedom. We say to our little girls, we do a lot of research, and we do a lot of research in stereotyping. We just released, look on our website, something rather fun way of releasing our little boys' research that we've just done. But what we find is we all, me included, right? So I'm not saying this is anyone else's problem, sorry microphone, say be careful to our girls all the time, probably because we are projecting the fear we have for them when they're teenagers. When they're 2, a little boy and a little girl are marginally different biologically. Boys are born slightly larger, they have a testosterone surge at 6 months, but the difference is tiny at that age. The girls are not going to break if we do rough and tumble with them, but we say be careful. So what does it do? It instills fear into us from very, very young. So in terms of change culturally, we are still stereotyping as heavily probably as we did back then. But in terms of work-life balance, you know, I'm in my mid-50s. My mother's generation just lost their job when they got married, not even when they got pregnant. They were just booted out. That, you know, there has been progress. When I had my little ones, I only got 3 months maternity because I hadn't been in the job long enough to give myself 6 months. So that wasn't great. But, you know, actually in the environment sector, I think the culture was quite good in general. Everyone was on a joint cause towards something far bigger for future generations. So there wasn't so much aggro, really, I think. So I think there has been change. There's been change in the law, hasn't there? There's been change in the world of sport. But we also saw, listening to the panel today, we've got this really terrifying division of the sexes going on worldwide. And I know you've been seeing the data that men are becoming more right-wing and women are becoming more left-wing, and this is global. And there's this division of sexes fueled, of course, by social media, and the young men most affected by this. So, you know, we're in a pretty terrifying space, and we do need to find a way to talk about the vision of the future of sport, which is equal. We're not pushing. We want our little boys to love sport. We want all the men in our lives to love sport. It's not about men not doing sport. It's about women also doing sport. And we need to be thinking of ways to communicate that, so there isn't this fear of loss that drives this horrible behaviour.
How important is it to have, like, you know, you mentioned Emma Hayes is going to be here a little bit later, you know, to say on live TV that actually she's prioritising her son, you know, in terms of her career. Sian, for you, those sorts of comments that are made publicly that perhaps wouldn't have been made maybe 20 years ago, how important is it for you to hear that, and perhaps for the next generation as well?
Yeah, I think once you have role models like Emma saying it on live TV, that it's okay to have time off with your family, then you're more likely to kind of go, oh, well, I can't come to work this week, she's ill. You know, you're more likely to have that conversation with your boss. And I think it's that chain reaction, isn't it? That every little helps every time. So I say it, Tanya says it, everybody says it, it becomes okay. And I think it's that knockdown domino effect of, you know, but it's easier when it comes from the top, that everybody sees it and it's kind of more accepted.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I was just making notes before this. I was just sort of thinking about how I've experienced problems at work in terms of being a woman. And it was little comments like, some of my friends say, I've come to work for a rest. You know, I feel like I've done a day's work already before I've come to work. How can I be on time tomorrow? I need to drop off. And the constant juggle, missing major events is another one in family life, and dealing with the guilt and just actually needing help. Is that something you've come across, Tanya, and had really positive experiences with?
Not necessarily always positive experiences, but I think for me, I'm really, my priority is to make sure I can pick my little one up from nursery, and I do the bath time and the bedtime routine. That's really important to me. It's my connection with him. And it's not always possible. If I'm away on international camp, I might be able to FaceTime, etc. But for me, that's a non-negotiable. And I think being really clear about the fact that during that period of time, I won't be taking phone calls unless it's a really urgent meeting or it's something that can't be changed. That time is protected. I'm happy to work before it. I'm happy to work after it. I'll be up till 10 o'clock at night doing work while he's asleep. But for me, that 5 till 7 p.m. slot is really, really important. And I think what I would say is be okay that not everyone's going to be okay with that. I'm really lucky in an environment now where everybody that I work with understands that. Even if they don't agree with it, there's a respect for it. And, unless it's a really urgent thing that can't be moved, generally speaking, that is my allocated slice of the pie, if you like. But there's always people that maybe are not have to balance things that won't understand that. And I think be kind to yourself would be what I would say, and don't beat yourself up about that. You'll always have a bit of guilt with that, but at the end of the day, everybody prioritises something in their life. Some are visible and some are not. So, the fact that I'm quite open about it and I sort of, make it known to everybody, I'm okay with that. And there will be people that don't necessarily agree with that, and will make those comments of, it must be nice to finish at 5, or half a day Harry, like that type of joke. I'm okay with that. I'm happy, he's happy, I'm happy, and I know deep down inside when they're asleep at 9:30 or watching TV, I'm back on my laptop typing away tirelessly. So be comfortable with yourself and kind of what you believe in and what you are, prioritising, and be kind to yourself with that, because not everybody will agree with it.
Yeah, it's nice to hear you sort of say you're sort of almost fitting yourself into it, rather than sort of allowing people to take that time away from you. And I think that's really important, setting boundaries. I was interested in this stat, Lenah. I'm going to say it to you. There was a member survey for the WIF members in 2023, and they said that almost half of them, 45% of them, felt that they've been overlooked for career progression because of their gender. That's quite hard to listen to, isn't it, a stat like that?
Yeah, it is. It's pretty staggering to sit here in 2024 and think that that's still happening. I don't even know what to say with that. I don't know. I thought we'd move forward, but that sort of takes me back.
Yeah.
I think we all need to be in control of what we can control, right? And I think if that's the stat, we have a lot of work to do, all of us, right? And I think it's going to take all of us to move that forward. And I think that stat is a good level set, but we now need to say, okay, so how do we change it? How do we bring more women to the table? How do we help each other, right? And how do we provide those opportunities for each other? I think it sort of goes back to what I was saying before is, that's the figures and that's fine, but now what do we do with that, right?
Yeah.
Again, I still don't believe, I think there could be legislation on the pitch perspective. I think Title IX has helped a lot on, from a playing perspective. But again, I don't think we need to performance is performance, right? And I think we need to make sure and look out for other performance. And I think we need to get under the hood of that stat and understand how these women are feeling, right? And where's the mental health support as well? How do we make someone a healthy employee, happy mom, not mom, female in sport, so they can be their best foot forward? And if you are not feeling like you're progressing, then maybe you need to look elsewhere as well and find an organization that fits you. As you said, not every organization is going to be as advanced, and they're going to lose great talent. And I think we need to go and really put a light on those that are making changes in this industry, and surround them and put them on a pedestal and show how that can be doing good business. Means it can be profitable too, right? This isn't charity. We all work in sport. We need to make money, but we can do it the right way. And I think that's what we need to do, is sort of, instead of shining the light on all the negative, there's a shining the light on the positive and those that are really changing the game. And look at Angel City. Look at just us sitting here talking about this, right? Look at we run the collective at Wasserman, and we ask people in the company, which is a gender equity platform for us, both internally and externally. And we ask people what they want to talk about. The newest thing people want to talk about, freezing their eggs. They want to talk about menopause. great, make it a safe space, right? It's sports, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about those things. We are women still, and I think that's super important as well, is create the place you want to be, and that's the first step.
Stephanie, did that statistic surprise you at all that I just read out?
No, because people making the decision about who to appoint have to be half and half, or you're going to get a natural lived experience, which will mean you don't understand the other person as well. So, we have to educate ourselves about how we're behaving and why we're behaving as we are. I used to, in my last job, say, there were lots of independent wildlife trusts, and I talked to a chairman and he'd say, I don't know why so-and-so hasn't applied for the chief exec job. And I said, well, have you asked her to apply? Well, no, but surely she'd put herself forward. But no, because she's a woman, she'll assume that you would ask her to apply if she's an internal candidate, or she won't put herself forward. So he did, she got the job, she's completely amazing. It's just understanding that we have to draw women out because we've been stereotyped to sit away. And you have to draw women out more in interview. And you have to recognise they won't apply for a job. I mean, the other stats around this is women will only apply for a job when they can do, I can't remember, 70 or 90% of it already, whereas men will apply for the job. And this is probably where we should all apply for jobs when they can do 30 or 40% of it, because they've got the confidence they'll learn the rest. And so, actually, there's a whole area of education for us all around how we're going to shift that. And I don't think it is, I mean, in my last job, there would be arguments about whether you expanded a woodland by planting rows of trees, or whether you expanded a woodland by making the soil fertile for the wood to naturally disperse its seed and grow naturally, and it will be much healthier and stronger. And we have to make the environment so good for women that we naturally thrive within it, that we naturally do. It's not a sort of false environment, and the environment is what matters, the culture is what matters, and men can massively help in that because they largely are still running sport and the world. And so the more men that understand when they're interviewing women, draw them out more, the more we're going to start to shift the appointments. So there's a lot we can do that's quite positive and practical, but is not down to the women who are the ones applying, it's down to the people who've got the power to change.
Sian, you've worked in a male-dominated environment most of your career. Have you often felt supported or not supported?
Yeah, I think to start with, I look back and I think there was only probably a couple, but I think I reached out for them male allies. I think I looked for them people that would support me, and I kind of treated them like my brother, if that makes sense. And a lot of them, I did feel like I had to prove myself more in that respect, in terms of, when I first got on, I thought, on my first game, I remember thinking, bloody hell, the whole world sat on my shoulders in terms of, if I do a bad job here, the whole of the kind of, that women will be crap. If I did crap, women would be crap. And
ruined
I
it for womankind.
took that on my shoulders, I think a little bit too much, but that really resonates with me in terms of I didn't think I was ready. If I'd have had to choose whether I should have done that game or not, I wouldn't have tried, because that natural disbelief in my own ability was already there. I didn't think I met 100% of the criteria, so why should I try it? But then male allies for me, one in particular, our managing director at the time was very open to that. And he was like, no, you've performed on all of these games, you get the opportunity the same as everybody else. And I do think it relied on him in that leadership position to be open-minded, to accept that I was good enough as a female. And I think that I then have had lots of male allies along the way to put an arm around me, to encourage me, to challenge me to be better. And I think that has helped me. So, yeah.
Yeah. I do want to throw it out to you guys, so I don't know whether anyone's got a burning question right now or whether you've got one that you can think of. Oh, brilliant. Let's start then, rather than me carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm expecting my first child in June, and
Congratulations.
I, despite having a really inclusive employer, recently decided not to compete for a promotion because it would have been a basically 24/7 job, always on, and I didn't feel I could do that and be a first-time mum. So I guess I just wondered if there was any words of encouragement about, for someone who's very ambitious, having to step back a little bit and maybe put family first for the first time.
Anyone want to take that?
Well, I applied for my first chief exec job when I was just pregnant with my second child. I didn't know when I applied for it, but I knew it in the interview, but I didn't tell them till after I got the job. And actually they were amazing, but that was the culture, it was a positive culture. I mean, it's sad you feel you have to put things on hold, but equally you can make a decision to do that, and that's perfectly valid. You're not putting everything on hold, you're just slowing up a little bit. And personally, I kind of wish my career had been a bit slower at certain points, because I wish I had more time with the kids when they were little. So you probably make the absolutely right call, and don't beat yourself up that you can't go just as far as you want to. You think of people who become famous authors, they start writing at 60. Don't put pressure on yourself about the time scale. Just keep going and keep being yourself, I'd say.
Yeah, I think just to link into that, I took the Chelsea assistant job. I think Albie was 3 or 4 months old when I took it. Upon reflection, I probably shouldn't have taken that job, if I'm really honest. I probably wasn't in a place physically, emotionally, to throw myself into that role. I did it the very best I could. I had great support around me, both kind of at home and in the workplace. But looking back now, I kind of go, oh, that was a lot, and 3 games a week, every week, being away all the time. I wish I'd maybe made a little bit of a different decision, but I did it, and we're here, and I survived, and it's all fine. So I think just to echo that, like, back your own decision and back your own choice, and know that no matter what you do, you're going to be amazing anyway. So whether that's, you go for the promotion now or you go for it in 2 years' time, it all works out. I didn't think I would be sat here on this panel, when I took that job. So look, I think you make your own decisions and trust yourself.
Mm.
Yeah, I would say personally from experience as well, at the time I was pregnant, I did a bit of sneaky thing as well, that the whole, I'm not going to tell them because they were offering me a job, and I took the job, but actually it became very apparent to me that I probably shouldn't have been doing it. I was heavily pregnant, walking up these tiny little steps in a studio, and it's almost like a gantry level, but I was so determined to do it, because to sort of say pregnant women can be on screen, and there was people sort of saying, do you really want to be on screen that's so heavily pregnant, which was just awful. I felt dreadful being this size. It was out here, but I thought, I've got to do this for everyone else that's watching and saying, well, she's, you see the weather women and they stand and their belly covers the screen. I think, yeah, go girl, belly cover the screen. I don't care that I can't see the south of England, because it's really important that we see these women on screen. It's a visibility that women are pregnant and they can still work, they can still do it. But absolutely, like Tanya was saying, go with your heart, because I remember thinking, I'm done with this, and I went probably a little bit too far with it, but it was almost like proving a point. Yeah. But nothing happened, so I got away with it almost. But I just follow your heart, you'll know, and you'll be a great mum. And congratulations. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to take you gentleman there, because you did have your hand up first, and then I'll try and get 2 more questions in.
I'd really like to follow up Stephanie's comment about women applying and showing interest in roles. I've worked as a headhunter for 20 years, not within sport, but within science and innovation, which in terms of the sector and the way that people like me are at the head of that business, acts in the same way. Getting women to apply for roles was really, really tough. I took the view that if any woman ever expressed any interest in a role, I would make a phone call and actually understand whether they were qualified to go further down that line and try and encourage them to do so. But I would just encourage everyone in the audience, don't worry about the fact that if that you're not sure you can do 100% of it. Register an interest. Let the headhunter, the recruiter, the company, whoever it is, make that decision about whether you are actually qualified for it or not. If you decide not to apply, you preclude yourself from any conversations. Whereas you will get opportunity if you put yourself in the frame.
Very good advice.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. There's one down here, and there was one bit there, the lady there, and then we'll go down here, and I might...
Excellent. Hi, Georgia McGrath, Head of Marketing at Burnley. We've spoken a lot about women with children. I just wondered what advice you had for women who don't have children and how they protect their work-life balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone wants to take that?
Well, I've been watching my daughter, who doesn't have children, trying to deal with her work-life balance. To be fair, the dogs have taken on the pressure of the children. But I mean, I think it's the same thing. It's just about, as you said earlier, it's just knowing what makes you well and happy, and trying to plan your life around that, valuing your own well-being, just first and foremost, so that you're not just thinking, right, I don't have kids, I've got to fire through the career ladder as fast as I possibly can. Just think, what's actually the purpose in it? I think purpose is a really, what's your purpose in life really is a really powerful thing to reflect on. Because if your purpose is just to get to the top of the ladder because you want to get to the top of the ladder, you'll probably find that's not enough. Purpose has to be because you love something, or it gives you something else, or there's something that you're really passionate about, I think, if you can. So I just think, don't put pressure on yourself all the time. Just, try and just learn and live and be giving to the job and to the people in your family and friends.
I used to get asked, and it used to drive me mad. I'd sit at a table for a dinner with people, and they'd go, "Oh, so what's next for Vicky Gomersall?" And I think, what's next to me? I don't know. I'm quite happy doing what I am. I'm kind of enjoying. I'm sorry if I've plateaued, but I'm quite happy plateauing actually. And it's always that constant. It's almost like other people put the pressure on you to go to the next job. Just enjoy the journey. The destination. Who cares what the destination is? You don't know. So I think that's for me. I used to literally sit there and say, "Oh, I don't know, match of the day, I guess, would be next to me," because I just filled the answer. But actually, I didn't want to. So now I get to say, "No, I'm happy. I'm doing what I'm doing." So I think actually, being there is okay. You don't always have to be there, and you'll get to there quite naturally. I've been told to stop.
I've never seen that one before.
I always get told to stop on air, so I suppose I've got to end it there because you've got to go and have a little coffee or something. So please go to the atrium now and you can have a coffee and everything. But please say thank you to Stephanie, to Sian, Tanya, and Lenah. Thank you so much.